The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-host and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network and or their employers. Viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on our live shows.
Broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This is the Firearms Radio Network. The bandwidth for this episode of This Week in Guns is sponsored by Patriot Patch Company. PatriotPatch.co.
Welcome to This Week in Guns. This show is brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network and Patriot Patch Company.
And this show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. I'm your host, Sean Herron, and it's my pleasure to introduce our guest tonight. Our first guest has been a Marine, a police officer, professional bodyguard, small arms and tactics instructor, also an author, radio and television personality, host of the Student of the Gun podcast, and the Pimp Hand of America. Please welcome Paul G. Markle to the show. Paul, how are you?
Oh, I'm just Jim Dandy, and that was a wonderful introduction you just gave me.
Glad to do it. Next up, we got the guy that made me say Pimp Hand of America. He's an MMA fighter and boxer, martial arts specialist, power lifter, COO, producer, marketing guru, and digital mastermind of Student of the Gun. Please welcome Jared Markle. Jared, welcome, man.
Hey, Sean, thanks for having me. And you will not get choked out because you did say Pimp Hand.
Oh, well, when I get a text from my producer that says I have to say that, I have to say that.
Thank you, producer.
And then next up, we've got a veteran husband, father, and the creator and host of the Matter of Facts podcast, Phil Rabelais. How's it going, man? Welcome.
I appreciate the invite, sir.
Glad to have you all here. And before we get into it, let me just give a shout out to our advertisers. We've got Patriot Patch Company. Why don't you go ahead and take a look at their website, patriotpatch.co. You know Jake, you love Jake and Ryan. They're making amazing stuff. I just got my Patch of the Month Club entry this month, and it is awesome. Valentine's related, 45, 9mm, and just great stuff. I'm not even going to spoil the surprise. Go check it out at patriotpatch.co. And also Manticore Arms, making a lot of products across a broad spectrum of firearms. We've got Tavor, the Bren, the Scorpion, AKs, ARs, all kinds of other stuff. Check them out and save money using coupon code TWG10 at manticorearms.com. We'll talk a little bit more about them later in the show. But let's get started. The first story that I have to talk about tonight is Florida bill to prevent abuse for exposing concealed firearm passes committee. This is an article from AmmoLand and was written by Marianne Hammer, so I almost didn't read it, but I thought it was kind of an important topic. HB 39 in Florida was heard in the House Criminal Justice Subcommittee on Monday, January 29, 2018, passed with a vote of 9-4. Basically, in Florida, it is illegal to print or even momentarily expose your firearm. So if you're reaching for something on the top shelf and your shirt rides up a little bit and exposes your firearm, that is a crime. And this bill is basically to stop that from being a crime. And as they call it, stop abusing law-abiding citizens. Anyone have any thoughts on this?
I'm kind of impressed.
Yeah, it's some good sense, and it should never have been that way. And Texas was that way for the longest time, the anti-printing thing. And I think it's a positive move forward.
I completely agree. I will say that there was some testimony from a person from Tallahassee that was basically representing Moms Demand Action. When she was doing her testimony, it was 100% misleading and false in every single way. She said, and I quote, "This bill is a dangerous proposal which legalizes the open carry of handguns in Florida." Not anything to do with that whatsoever, and just more propaganda from that side of the aisle.
You don't expect them to actually read the bills, do you?
No. In fact, I'm sure that was a prepared statement given to her that she had never heard.
How do you come out and say, this is terrible, people will die? What do you mean? We're just saying that if it is momentarily exposed, it's not a crime. Or if it's printing. I love the printing one.
Yes.
Jared, remember when someone tried to bust you for printing and it was actually your Galaxy phone?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're not allowed to have a gun in here. Like, okay, but it's a Galaxy phone, so calm down, Sparky.
It's funny because right behind my Galaxy phone was actually a concealed firearm.
Well, that's
outstanding.
Yeah.
No, I'm honestly a little surprised. When I see something about Florida popping in the news, I never know whether to cringe or cheer. It's kind of like, and just wait and hold your breath. But this is good for them. I see some common sense still exists there.
Yeah, 100%. And if anyone ever accuses me of having a gun, I'm just going to say it's my colostomy bag and see where they go from there.
Okay.
A little bit awkward for everybody.
Awkward.
Californians may soon be able to ban themselves from owning guns. A lawmaker pushing bill to let Californians bar themselves from purchasing firearms. Bob Bonta, a Democrat from Oakland, is pushing a new gun control bill designed to enable Californians to bar themselves from purchasing firearms. Bill AB 1927 presented as a way that people with suicidal thoughts can take away the option of acquiring a firearm with which to carry out their intentions. Under this bill, anyone who would bar themselves from gun purchases would be able to recover their Second Amendment rights by demonstrating they were no longer a danger to themselves or others. However, the bill does not include or say what such a demonstration would entail.
I wasn't aware that you needed a law to ban yourself from owning a gun. I mean, y'all tell me. I've never had a gun like follow me home from the gun store without me actively spending money and bringing it with me. So I think there's already a mechanism there. If you don't trust yourself with guns, not to have them.
You mean guns don't just automatically show up in the mail at your house?
Paul, I'm telling you right now, if they show up at your house automatically in the mail without you paying for them, I want to know your secret. Because nobody's sending me free guns.
I get a lot of free guns, but you know, I always have to send them back too. So it's like Indian getting almost.
Yeah, but I certainly don't need the state to tell me, oh, by the way, we're glad you think you're crazy. We're going to help keep you safe.
And so what does the process look like? My question would be, what does the process look like to unban yourself? It's like, hey, I have this mental illness. I don't want myself to be able to get a gun. And then, you know, a month later, you're like, oh, I feel better now. How do you get it back?
Well, yeah. And that's the thing is that they don't say what that demonstration would entail. And that's pretty scary. I mean, someone's having a tough time, figures, okay, well, I'm going to do this. And again, I don't know.
Shouldn't
Maybe
that be something that you're talking with your priest or your pastor or your spouse about, not with a bureaucrat?
Well, but
yeah, you're having suicidal thoughts. So my first thing, if you're having suicidal thoughts and you go down to a state office and get in line to talk to a bureaucrat, you're probably going to finish it off. I'm just saying, that's not the place I think you should be going. I would say if you're having suicidal thoughts, you probably should avoid the DMV and every other organization that's run by the state. That would not be my first suggestion.
completely agree. And what are they going to do? Like a website, like takeawaymysecond.com? You just go there.
Takemygun.com.
I'm going to go buy that so they can't get it.
I know. I literally just searched for it before I said it to make sure I wasn't giving anyone free advertising.
And then make it a program website just to piss them off.
Exactly. Make it happen, folks. Yeah, this is a crazy one to me. I guess I just don't understand the use of a lot of these laws, but yeah, just this one. I mean, they've already got a 10-day waiting period in California. If that's not enough time for them to come to their senses or whatever, well, you know, they're going to figure something else out. I don't think that this fixes a problem.
Well, what you probably don't understand is that suicide didn't occur on planet Earth until the invention of gunpowder.
Truth.
Of course.
Yeah, and up to that time, there was no suicide on planet Earth. But when those rascally Chinese invented gunpowder, and then it just happened. Except that that's not really true, because Japanese kill themselves off like fiends, and they don't have guns. So what?
I don't know, man.
Maybe they need to have a special like ban my sword or ban my knife thing in Japan.
Ban my elevator shaft
on a knife ban. You put themselves on a knife ban list.
Yeah, this is
some solutions here, and that's what I like. I like solutions.
Same here, and more great solutions coming from California. I'm just really proud of them. Someone I am actually proud of: Waffle House customer opens fire, foiling alleged armed robbery. Fox 5 reports that the suspect entered the restaurant just before 4 a.m. on Saturday. Both suspects were allegedly armed and demanding money from the cashier. But before money could be passed to them, a Waffle House patron pulled his own handgun and shot, causing the suspects to flee the scene. Nothing good happens at Waffle House after about 1 a.m. in my experience, but you know, in this case, not so terrible.
I don't think anything good happens at Waffle House ever.
That could be true.
But well, you know what's funny is we actually, Jared, is this in the?
Yeah, this is the one that we just talked about.
Yeah, we recorded our tomorrow show, the grad program show, and this is in there. But I'm going to say one thing. In the story, it never says where the bullets that were launched by the armed citizen impacted.
Correct, and it doesn't sound like they impacted with the bad guys, which is definitely a concern.
So, yeah, Go team, but you need to go ahead and get into a training class because if you can't hit a dude that's in a Waffle House, have you been into a Waffle House?
Yeah, they're
Right.
but
They're
20
not.
square
There
feet.
aren't really long hallways and stretches in a Waffle House.
No. Usually
So-
they're just at the back end of a building that, it was a closet and they were like, hey, let's put a Waffle House here.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, I'm not trying to be overly critical, but if you're going to launch bullets, you want to make sure that they go where you intended them to go, not just kind of around the landscape. And it says fired, and when it says fired shot, I'm almost afraid that it was like a deliberate one into the ceiling just to scare them.
Kapow!
I'm afraid of that. I'm not going to say that that's what it was, but yeah, no further details were given. So,
Agreed. I did
I don't know.
I did follow the story just to kind of see. And also, it sounds like normally I would think if I was in fear of bodily injury or death, that I would draw and shoot. But it doesn't say anything. It just says that at some point he drew and shot, and that makes me nervous too. So yeah, definitely would love to see some more details on this one. As of now, it just seems a little bit weird.
Well, the thugs are still on the lam. They're still armed and they're still on the lam. If I can use some cop linkity there. So, I mean, it's good that they're not in that Waffle House anymore, but I can guarantee that they didn't go out in the parking lot and come to Jesus. They're just going to drive around until they can find somebody else to rob.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hate to put it this way, but I would have liked to have seen him get a lead injection personally. That tends to alter your career choices when your thing is armed robbery.
Yeah, I completely agree. And what a career it is. I heard that they were having a job fair, so I guess we'll have to see how that goes.
In Gwinnett County, Georgia.
Next story, a little somber. 12-year-old girl arrested for shooting for at Los Angeles Middle School. Read this one earlier. I had to read it a couple times because it was a little bit kind of unclear exactly what was going on. But 4 students were hit by gunfire at Los Angeles school, and a 12-year-old girl was in custody. 15-year-old boy was actually shot in the head, but doctors were able to stabilize him. It seemed like everything was pretty the positive outcomes medically for those that were injured, and I guess we'll see a little bit more. I was just
about 9 o'clock this morning.
Sorry, I love autoplay videos. I don't know, 12 years old, bringing a gun to school. My guess is probably maybe a bullying situation, something like that. It doesn't.
I'm thinking gang initiation.
That was the first thing that went through my mind too. And they start young. I hate to say that, but gangs start young. My question is, where'd the gun come from? Are the serial numbers scratched off? Did you get it from mom and dad? Get it from a
Did
friend?
you say this was in California?
Yeah, Los Angeles.
Then I think this whole story is fake news because it's not possible.
Oh yeah,
they have plastic signs and they have lots of laws. So, I think this is probably propaganda on the part of the gun lobby to try and make California look bad.
Completely agree. Yeah, I think you're right. I didn't even think of that before I chose the story, but yeah, you have to be right because that just doesn't happen. And why didn't this girl go to takeawaymysecond.com, and just report herself and ban herself from having firearms?
She
is my
should've.
question.
Well, maybe in the future.
Maybe in the future.
No, I did want to say one thing before we move on, though. The one thing I read about that really had me kind of cheering was that one of the teachers had the forethought to take a sofa and shove it up against the door to barricade herself in. So, I mean, props to her for him or her for putting themselves between this disturbed young lady and the children. But I'm one of those people that still says if we defend our politicians with the guns, maybe we should have armed teachers in the classrooms. Crazy idea, but
I want to know how they got a sofa in a classroom.
I want to know why they have a sofa in a
They never
classroom.
had a sofa in any of my classrooms. We
Yeah,
had
I'm
those-
kinda
those
jealous,
hard plastic chairs.
it's all fake news anyway, Paul.
I've got a sofa in my office, but that's just for casting.
Yeah,
Not touching that one, Sean.
I don't know.
This is
Well-
family friendly, so I'll keep my mouth shut.
Me and Jared went to the same spot.
Sometimes I think, no, that's exactly where I meant for everyone to go. I forgot what show I was on momentarily.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you could.
Guys, this
careful
next
now.
story happened literally 1 mile from where I'm sitting right this second. Deputy killed and 3 officers wounded in Colorado Springs shooting. Very, very close to home. My daughter, her apartment is literally on the corner where this happened. I was in communication with her the second I saw it on the news. And, just a bad scene all around. Sheriff's deputy was investigating a motor vehicle theft. A struggle ensued. he was shot and actually killed. And that launched, obviously, a chase and all the things that you would guess would be associated with that, culminating in more officers being shot, a civilian being shot as well, and just kind of a mess. I did go and look up our crime stats here because I seem to see a lot of different things going on in Colorado Springs, but still we have a relatively low crime. This is just kind of one of those terrible things. And my heart goes out to the sheriff's deputy's family and the sheriff's office, the police force, and our community here in Colorado Springs.
That's just heartbreaking. I mean, it really, truly is.
Yeah, and something like this happened. Well, it wasn't like this. Something involving an officer happened near me in Utah. It was about an hour away, but a concealed carry citizen actually stepped in and saved the officer from getting beat up. So,
oh yeah, that's right. That just happened in your town.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, and you never know, and you can't. And when I was a police officer, like many moons ago, and one of the things that we were admonished is to not treat anything as a quote typical stop or average stop or whatever, because of complacency. And they're like, you never know. I was actually talking to a corrections officer when I was a cop, and I said, man, I wouldn't want your job. And he said, man, I wouldn't want your job. He said, I go to work every day knowing that the people that I'm going to encounter are felons. He said, I'm mentally prepared for it every moment of the day because I know everyone that's not wearing a uniform like me is a felon. He said, you go out on the street and you don't know. You could walk into, the Quickie Mart to buy a candy bar or something, and you interrupt a robbery, and bam, that's it. So you just have to be continuously aware and understand and train, take precautions, and be hard. But it's hard. It's difficult to be hard as a cop in America today because you're constantly under a microscope. And that's where we're handicapping our police officers. We tell them, well, you better not frown and you better not say harsh words and you better not be mean towards people. But at the same time, oh, you could get killed today. But make sure there's a smile on your face while you're being murdered.
Yeah.
I actually just, Jared, you don't know this. We just got a message, a private message to the show, our show, that said, I know you don't recommend being a police officer, but why? And I don't. I did the job for a long time, and I tell you what, I would tell someone today, don't be a cop because it's a thankless job. And it's not just thankless from the criminal standpoint, it's thankless from the politician standpoint. You as a cop are always wrong. The media is against you, Comrade Barry and the Democrats are against you. It's really kind of sad. So
We see
my
so
advice
many.
is don't be a cop.
Yeah. We see so many stories on this show where, because of the bent of the media, they want to persecute cops every choice they make, every step they take. And I remember not too long ago, we had the story about the guy who was in a hotel, and apparently someone saw he had a firearm in his room through the window. The cops showed up, instructed him to crawl out. He was on his knees, made a move that seemed furtive to the cops, and one of the cops, not the one cop, talking, put a few rounds in him from his AR. And it's really tough for me to see stuff like that because, like you just said, these cops have to be ready. They never know if it's going to be, somebody's grandma or just a stone cold killer. And I totally agree. It's second guessing police these days is extremely difficult. I'm not saying they're all fantastic and great, but what an impossible job.
No, and they're not. But the problem is like with the guy in the hallway. Oh, I saw the video and what have you. And when I became a police officer, which I'm dating myself, but like back in the early 1990s, like 91, 92 timeframe, cops used to fight. Cops don't fight anymore. And we actually need, and you say, well, yeah, we don't want cops to fight because they get hurt and bad guys get hurt. The problem is when you give police officers no other option but to go for a weapon or some sort. I can tell you this, that criminals are no longer afraid of tasers. They're not. They know that it's going to be over in 5 seconds and it's not going to hurt them. Criminals are not afraid of tasers. And we're put our cops in a position now where they're almost hamstrung. And they're either underreacting or overreacting, When I was a young cop, the veteran cops, we had dents in the hoods of our police cars, in the trunk lids, and and every once in a while you'd be standing around or something, and you're like, hey, remember where that dent in the trunk lid came from? And it was from frightened Red Smitty, the local town drunk or whatever, and you just did it. And actually, believe it or not, the bad people, they respected you because they knew that it was part of like doing business. And I know it sounds barbaric. You're like, you can't just have cops fighting people. But when cops fought people, the bad guys, believe it or not, actually had, in their own twisted bad guy minds, had respect for the officers. They don't have respect for them now. There's none. There's no fear. It's just, how far can I get away with this? And if I get the drop on this guy, I'm going to kill him. So
yeah,
that's my 2 cents.
And the parallel I draw is to the time I spent when I was deployed in Iraq with the military. And, you know, there was a time period, as bad as it's going to sound to some of the audience, where the people that we were actively trying to subdue were genuinely terrified of us, because they knew that if they stuck their toe out, we were going to chop it off. And then there was a time when the op tempo changed. We started pulling back. We started being less aggressive. And they responded by pouring heat down the back of our necks on a daily basis. They weren't scared of us. I mean, I draw the same parallel to what Paul is saying. But at the same time, I understand a little bit of what the police officers are dealing with, because, again, from that same experience I had, we were faced every day with just regular people who were not part of the insurgency, were not, you know, the Iraqi guard. All they were trying to do was farm, feed their families, and go home. They did not care that we were there, and they wanted no part of what was going on. They just wanted to go home every day. And then you had people that, if you blinked, they'd cut your throat without even thinking twice. And for us, it was hard to know that every single person we encounter could be either or. And we had to both be ready to fight and not jump the shark every single time we met somebody. It's an impossible position to be in. I don't understand how cops do it.
Emergency war, we end up screwing over our people. If we had a general, if we had a president that actually would let a general like Patton off the leash, we could finish up all these problems. But we want zero defect wars, and so rather than just locating and destroying, locate and destroy the enemy, we want to play these insurgency games where we play the little, well, these people over here are not bad, but these people are bad, and some of those might be bad, but some of them might not be bad. And then we create rules of engagement that essentially turn our soldiers and Marines and fighters into always potential criminals. Yeah, I mean, I was a contractor, and I was working with a lot of guys, and they had guys come over and said every time we went out on patrol, the first thing we did, we came back and we got debriefed by a JAG officer, like we were police officers being debriefed by IA. It wasn't, hey, was it a successful mission? Did you accomplish the mission? Did we locate, close with, and destroy the enemy? It was like, oh, no, did anybody do anything wrong? That's not how you fight wars. And that's not how you win wars. And that's why we haven't won the war on terrorism. That's why actually Comrade Barry just surrendered on all our behalves.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, back to the original story. If you think about it, does a criminal want to take the difficult route to get what they want, or do they want to take the path of least resistance? They want to take the path of resistance. Yeah, the least resistance, correct? And from my experiences in the martial art world, you go into a fighting gym, and I've seen this firsthand. There's a dude that's really skilled that can beat the crap out of pretty much any other fighter in there. And then there's a dude that's not as skilled, but he's got a ton of heart. And he'll just take beatings and give them back as much as he can. But the dude that's really skilled doesn't want to get in there with the guy that's going to take the beating and give it back, because the dude that's really skilled really doesn't want to take a beating in the first place. So you can apply that same logic to the streets.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone go ahead? He did.
That's where guns are.
Indeed.
Yeah, I heard from Shannon and the sandwich makers.
Yeah,
that's where all they're on the streets.
I heard the same thing. Does anyone anecdotally know just the efficacy of tasers? You mean
the Thomas A. Swift electric rifle?
Yes, absolutely. Because from what I've seen, and this is again very anecdotal. I don't know any statistics or anything like that. It's hit or miss. It's either going to stop or it's not going to stop. But there's clearly a very high percentage that it doesn't stop.
Oh no, it works. But the thing is
I've been tased.
It's the thing is it's nice. It's like, all right. For instance, when we had police officers that were hard, like that you had two options. You had 357 Magnum revolvers. Okay, three. You had a 12 gauge shotgun, and you had a piece of hickory. And one of those three tools was going to get used to solve the problem. And when you hit someone with a piece of hickory, they remember it the next day. They probably are going to remember it all week and maybe into the following week.
Yeah.
Or they may
but
not
when
remember.
you taser somebody, they don't even remember it the next day. It's just part of doing business. And we want to be so nice to our criminals. We don't want to hurt our criminals because that would be wrong. Why would it be wrong to hurt criminals? They're criminals. They're parasites. They're destroying our nation. But we're so worried about upsetting their inner child, and we're trying to create these. I understand the concept behind the taser. Trust me. Okay, I've been there. I got that T-shirt and all that. But here we are, like almost 20 years into the modern evolution of the taser. And we have criminals that are legit. They have no fear of the taser. That's an easy way out for them, actually.
Mm-hmm.
We need to go. America, you want to get a hold of the crime problem? We need to get rid of tasers. We need to go back to hickory sticks and shotguns, and business will get taken care of.
All right, good stuff. Again, thoughts go out to the El Paso County Sheriff's Office and Deputy Michael Flick's family. Appreciate what he sacrificed. Next story, DOD evaluation says that the Army's new 6-hour P320 service pistol is riddled with issues. Just a couple things I got out of here. A study conducted 2017 and released earlier this month. The Army's new service pistol, a military variant of the 6-hour P320, has exhibited a bunch of issues, not limited to the drop test failures. There was also trigger assemblies splintering apart during use. The pistol has a propensity for ejecting live rounds alongside spent shells, though it clarifies it does not usually result in a misfeed or malfunction. Not exactly sure what that means. But what are thoughts here? Is this just much ado about nothing, or is this a big concern, or is this something
I'll go last because I have
a lot to say. Yeah.
All right,
I was looking at the story here, and the picture, at least the picture is kind of decent. The previous pictures that I've seen of the dudes like hold the guns, I'm like, the Army trains like that, like what? But as far as the pistol, I don't rate to talk about that, so I'll leave it to the other guys.
Well, I don't have any hands-on experience with its predecessor, the Beretta M9, because I was always with M16s, and I haven't handled a SIG P320 yet. But my thoughts are, when the Army got away from using 1911s and swapped to Beretta M9s, I'm pretty sure there were teething problems. I wasn't around back then or not in uniform, but I'm pretty sure there were teething problems. And I equate a lot of this to that. Am I saying that the P320 is without fault? I can't. But I'm not immediate. I think a certain amount of this might be media hysterics, just because there's still some. I mean, honestly, I think there's probably still a lot of angst about Glock not getting the contract, even though they didn't fulfill all the requirements of the contract in the first place. But you can't convince a Glock guy that.
Okay, ready?
Lay it on us.
And go. Okay, Paul Markle. I was there. I was in the Marine Corps when we traded over and we changed over from 1911s to Berettas. I carried a 1911 for the first 2 years and then a Beretta. And one of the greatest things about going to the Beretta was the fact that the Marine Corps, I don't know about the Army, but the Marine Corps actually re-examined the pistol training program for the first time since World War II, which is a positive. When I first got in, they would hand you a 1911. You'd go and you'd stand at the table. You'd pick the gun up off the table, shoot the bullseye target, put it back down. Okay, you qualify. You get to carry the gun now. When they did the Beretta, they're like, hey, we should shoot at human-like targets, and we should make them draw from a holster. And we're like, whoa, this is crazy science stuff. But what's something that people don't understand or lack to understanding is the ammunition that they're feeding to these guns is essentially what you would call a plus P plus load. Because the military essentially has the big military. I know there's small tier units that can buy whatever they want, but big military has one style 9mm, and it has to run everything that's 9mm in the inventory, including submachine guns, carbines, and pistols. So the M882 is super hot and it beats guns up. That's one reason that Berettas broke so much, is because if you talk to Beretta, they'll tell you that the locking blocks are supposed to be changed every 2,000 to 3,000 rounds. The recoil springs are supposed to be changed, but they don't ever change them. The reality of it is the armorers only fix things when things are broken. You break a pistol, you take it to the armor, and you're like, "Ah, this thing's broke," and he's like, "Okay, give it to me," and then that's when they fix it. But that doesn't help the guy who's on the range when the thing breaks. The preventative maintenance is kind of because we're not going to spend a bunch of money replacing parts that aren't broke, right? Now the SIG thing, Mac actually, Military Arms Channel, he did a really good video here recently about the new Remington pistol and how it had that problem of allowing rounds to pop out of the top. And I think that's a very, very similar problem. What it is essentially is the slide's locked to the rear. This doesn't happen when you load the gun on a closed slide. Slide's locked to the rear after it's empty. You grab the thing, you jam it in, pow, and the inertia causes a live round to slip out of the feed lips. It pops out. The slide goes forward, grabs the next round up, chambers it. So you got a round in there, but now there's a live one on the ground, which generally isn't a good thing. And there's a lot of speculation. Did SIG, did they discount the magazines, or did they make the magazines so that they could mass produce them cheaply to come in under budget? I don't know. I know that doesn't happen with Glock pistols. And it doesn't happen with Canik pistols either. But the fact is, and as far as the breakage, they're going to break those guns. It's just going to happen. And part of the reason they're going to break them is because the Army is the people who choose pistols are idiots. And they require all kinds of extra things on them, like extra safeties and so forth. And this modular handgun system, this is me, Paul Markle, student of the gun, going on record. The modular handgun system is retarded. You don't need a modular handgun for military troops. You need to choose one handgun, teach them how to use it. They don't need it to be ambidextrous. They don't need it to, you be able to change the controls left and right, upside down, backwards and forwards. Learn how to run the equipment. They never made the 1911 ambi. They never changed the 1911. They're like, oh, we got to put the thing on the other side and thing. Like, no, I've taught tons of left-handed people to run Berettas, tons of left-handed people to run M4s. Tons of left-handed people to run 1911s. You can do it. It requires training and practice, but it can be done. But coming up with a handgun that, well, you can take this out and put this frame on and this and so forth, that's never going to happen. All the extra parts that come in that box, the armorers are going to take a bin. They're going to fill a bin full of extra parts, and they're going to hand you out the stock gun, and that's going to be it. And I have nothing against the SIG at all. I just think that creating some kind of a one size fits every trooper handgun, dude, I had 5'2" women that I trained to qualify with the Beretta, and a Beretta is a ridiculously large gun. Yep. So it can be done. It's just what it is we're trying to buy our way around training, which is typical. If we can buy enough gadgets and widgets and if we can moderate a gun and change a gun, then it'll be easier to train people. No, it won't. Just train your people.
Yeah, love that.
What do you know about training military, though? You've never done that before.
I know. What does this guy know about training military people? Yeah.
Well, hearing you talk about the plus P plus style of the 9mm that the military uses, it makes the enhancements made to like the Gen 5 Glocks and even the 19X. A lot of the stuff was just to improve the hardiness of the gun. And a lot of people were upset that there weren't more new features added. Well, they were preparing for something else. And what you just said sheds a lot of light on what they may have been preparing for.
There you go.
All right. So Gemtech files suit against Smith & Wesson in a federal court. I read through a lot of this, and there is a lot to it because the Firearm blog did post a little bit of a lot of the court documents. But basically, let me break it down as such. There's a whole lot of stuff going on, but breach of the asset purchase agreement. They basically got rid of a couple people that, with knowledge that doing so would negatively impact or help avoid the earn out payments to Gemtech. So basically, they got rid of some people that affected what they were supposed to pay out to Gemtech. There's a breach of escrow agreement, breach of express and implied covenants. At the end of the day, They are looking for a jury trial, which I highly doubt it will ever go. But the amount of damages are $18.6 million if the matter is resolved by default. We talked about the news where Smith & Wesson bought Gym Tech not too long ago, but wow, this kind of really has exploded, and I'm curious to see where it goes.
I'm curious what's going on, honestly, because, I mean, Smith & Wesson's got to have a reasonably intelligent legal team that could have or should have okay, wait, I made an assumption. Forgive me for that. But, I mean, when you are Smith & Wesson and you're this high profile of a company, you should be tiptoeing through this kind of a legal issue, and you should have a legal team right there with you to advise you if this is legal or not, because, I mean, this is some serious liability they've opened themselves up to. I don't think it's like company ending, but I mean, it's going to hurt if it goes against them. It's
big damages, and it's going to be fairly high profile considering they just bought Gym Tech. But here's the thing is the attorneys, Smith & Wesson may have great attorneys. The problem is they may not have a wonderfully intelligent executives, and executives are probably the ones making these choices. They're like, oh, look, we can save some money by getting rid of a couple of the head people at Gym Tech and not have to pay out as much. And, you know, so they do that. And then these are the repercussions that they face with those kind of choices.
Smith & Wesson is the same company that publicly attacked Brownells 2 years ago because, I don't know, I guess they thought that it would be a good idea to attack Brownells publicly. They're not that smart. They're still in Massachusetts. Half the guns that they manufacture are unlawful for people in Massachusetts to even own or touch. Smith & Wesson makes some really good products. Smith & Wesson also makes some really bad decisions. And part of that reason is because the people who run the company don't think that being in Massachusetts is a big deal. They don't think it's a problem. Matt, I was told by people at Smith & Wesson that I said, why are you still in Massachusetts? Go anywhere in America and build your factory. I was told, you don't understand. It's just too great of an undertaking. Okay. I'm pretty sure that Ford Motors has bigger companies than you. I'm pretty sure that Chevrolet has larger manufacturing facilities than you. They closed them down and they moved them to other places. It can be done. Weatherby's moving to Sheridan, Wyoming.
Yeah, saw that.
They're moving the entire production facility and their headquarters to Sheridan, Wyoming. Don't tell me it can't be done. What you have is you have comfortable executives who have country club memberships and really nice houses, and they could give two craps about the fact that Massachusetts hates guns and they can't even sell their own guns to the people in the state they make them at.
And when you talked about Smith & Wesson going after Brownells, it was about the Dream Gun stuff. Right?
Yeah. They issued a public statement attacking. Yeah, Frank Brownell is a saint, and so what you're like, hey, let's attack Frank Brownell in public. That'll be great for PR. Yeah, let's do that. And then they blamed the lawyers. They said, well, it was the attorneys that created that memorandum and generated it. I was like, all right, so who's in charge up there?
Right. Who's making, someone's telling him to go ahead and move forward with stuff.
I don't know who it was.
Yeah.
Maybe nobody's making the decisions. That's the problem.
Maybe you got Shannon, the sandwich maker, up there making decisions.
Just a bunch of autonomous bureaucracy moving along at the speed of nothing.
Well, they do have a grip safety on their new pistol now, so thank the Lord. Thank the lawyers for that.
The Shield 380 Easy, yes. Absolutely.
I don't know why they called it that, and they put a grip safety on it.
Well,
and
I completely agree. And in fact, why don't we talk about that right now? They've introduced the M&P 380 Shield Easy, and Paul, you said it. They put a grip safety on it, which means they remove one of the things that I love about the M&P line, which is the replaceable back strap, and so you can adjust it to your specific hand size. They also got rid of the hinged trigger, which was part of using the grip safety, is my guess. I don't know. I'm not terribly excited about the gun. I'll definitely shoot it, check it out, and see what it is. But is anyone excited about this on the panel?
No.
Putting a grip safety on a Smith & Wesson M&P has to be one of the most asinine firearm design ideas I've seen in a long time.
I think the Smith & Wesson lawyers all approved of it.
I bet they did. The same idiot that thought it was a good idea to put a key lock on the side of my wife's 642 Airweight probably dreamt this up, and they're high-fiving each other in the men's room about it. But Jesus Christ. I mean, it doesn't even look comfortable to use. And I know that's kind of unfair to levy on it because no one's even held the gun yet, but just look at it. I don't know what they were. I know what they were thinking, but it wasn't anything good.
You're not getting invited up to
Yeah.
Massachusetts.
You know what, Paul?
I can tell you that.
I can live with that. I wouldn't go to Massachusetts if you put a gun in my head. I'll stay down here in Louisiana, where we're a little bit more freedom loving than up there.
But guys, it has a loaded chamber indicator.
I don't
Oh,
care.
thank
Oh
God.
man.
Tell me that these were all California approved mods. Tell me that these are California approved mods. $100 as they were.
You know what? I haven't even thought of that, because I always try to look at it. I'm like, okay, so why would they put a grip safety on this? Like, for what reason?
Try and sneak it through the California approval process. They probably already shipped 3 of them off to California DOJ.
Well,
You
then it's all
you
worth
got to do that, right? You got to submit 3 guns to DOJ in California,
Yes.
and they keep them, and you can't have them back. And then they decide whether or not whether the king will allow your gun to be sold in his kingdom.
Well, the only thing that I'm thinking is that I'm not going to buy this gun unless you can see how many bullets are in the magazine. That's the only way.
I got a Dremel. I can hook that up.
They could make the grips panels out of polymer. They could make them out of clear, opaque polymer, because all polymer is generally clear anyway. So there you go, Jared.
There you go.
Problem
There you go.
solved.
Well, let me ask this. I mean, obviously, none of us live in California, but a lot of gun owners do live in California. So if they did this and they made these changes to make it palatable to the DOJ in California, and it does actually make it through, and then a lot of gun owners can buy this in California, is that a good thing?
It's a concealed carry gun. The king's not going to give you a permission to carry a concealed gun.
There you go.
And my whole standpoint on making, quote, California or New York approved guns is just once I would love to see a company just come out and say, you know what? We're not bending to the knee. We're not making guns specifically for your state. We're not selling guns to your law enforcement, by the way, because if you're not going to allow your citizens to have it, we're not going to sell it to you. And I'm sure somewhere in a boardroom in America, that's a really unpopular decision. But just once, I would like to see a firearms company run by actual Second Amendment supporters that will run on principle. Just for once, put profits in the back seat and say, we don't like your policies and we're not going to do business in your state or with your state, period, end discussion.
I've seen it a little with some smaller companies and things like that. That probably just the owner makes those decisions, not made in a boardroom. But yeah, I mean, I've seen it a couple times, and I always kind of, just give them a little high five in my head when I do see it. But then again, we do have a lot of people behind enemy lines over there, so I don't want to completely abandon them either.
No, I've already abandoned them.
I was just going to ask, go back to what Sean said. If you can get more guns into the hands of people in California, what are they going to do with them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. It is a concealed carry gun, and there's not a whole lot of concealed carry in California, except for some areas where they have a sheriff that has his head twisted on correctly.
Hang on a second. All of their undocumented residents can carry guns.
Oh, good.
Very, very good point.
So yeah, all the undocumented residents of California they feel no problem carrying guns, because what are they going to do? Put them in jail? I mean, in California, you can murder people and just say, oops. And they're like, well, okay, you just promise not to do it again.
Well, but Paul, the California politicians figured out a way to short circuit that. See, they knew illegal immigrants and criminals could get guns all willy-nilly, so they just decided to make you have to get a background check for the ammo. Now they can't have any bullets. They fixed the problem.
Well, unless you accidentally find a gun laying around and it already has ammo in it.
It was on the streets.
Because that's where they are. They're on the streets. You know that.
Yeah.
It's the gun show loophole. No one finds guns lying around the streets.
She said they're on the streets.
Well, in a state where you can now ban yourself from having guns at, what did I say? Takeawaymysecond.com. And you can knowingly give someone AIDS and it's not even a crime anymore. I guess what's to be expected.
There you go.
Arizona man who sold ammo to Las Vegas shooter has been charged. This is kind of, they were looking for something. This is a guy who made ammo for a long time, didn't have a manufacturing license, sold it to a criminal, just miscreant that they used it to murder a bunch of people. I'm not sure how you guys feel about this. I feel like some pretty bad luck for this guy, but
I'll go ahead and hold on to my thoughts.
All right.
I have a couple of things that have been percolating in my mind ever since I read this article. First of all, the title starts, or somewhere in the title line, it was talking about how this was armor-piercing ammunition that was supposedly manufactured and sold without a license. You can't manufacture armor-piercing ammo, to my knowledge, in the first place. But then when you get further down the body, they keep talking about how it's incendiary ammo.
Yeah.
Was I the only person that caught on to that inconsistency? They'd say armor piercing, then incendiary, then armor piercing and incendiary. And to me, it's like, but the two aren't the same thing. And to my knowledge, it's not illegal to sell somebody incendiary ammo.
It was tracer rounds, if I recall correctly.
Okay,
at the gun show.
But a tracer's not armor piercing at all.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Every rifle ammo is armor piercing.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I agree with you.
20 gauge slugs are armor piercing.
Yeah.
No, this is a patsy move. This is more smoke and mirrors on the I don't know who's behind it, whether it's the FBI's that's behind it or the who's pulling the chain of the locals over there. But this is horse crap. They're looking for a patsy. They have no real answers for us. They can't tell us how, they had missing evidence and then all of a sudden they found it accidentally. It was like that. We talked about this on the radio too. You guys it's almost like you're mind melding with me here. But, this like when this story first broke within the first week, they're like, oh, this is what we got out of the room. And they're like, and we seized his laptops, but there were no hard drives. And people are like, what?
Yeah. How?
What kind of a serial killer destroys his hard drive? Because if he's going to be dead and if he knows he's going to be dead, what does he give a crap about his hard drive? Okay, because it wasn't him who pulled the hard drive. It was somebody else who pulled the hard drive and took it. But you're not supposed to know that. But then miraculously, 3 months later, yeah, we found this computer and it had naughty pictures of kids on it. And he was a bad, bad man. And we're all like, well, what the hell does that have to do with the murders? Well, we just wanted you to know what a bad, bad man he was. Yeah, but we know he's a bad man.
Yeah, he's a
You
murderer.
told us he murdered 50 people. That kind of makes him a bad man. So what is the deal with this? We miraculously discovered computers with stuff. Initially, you said we didn't have any evidence, and now you do? Where did it come from? And where did all the surveillance footage of the Mandalay Bay go and the surrounding area?
Right.
Let me guess. There's no surveillance cameras in and around the Mandalay Bay. Oh, yes, there are. There's a whole bunch of unanswered questions, and they don't want to answer the questions. But they're going to be like, well, we're going to charge this guy for not having a license. Really? That's the new distraction. The left hand is dangling this poor guy. They're dangling him, and the right hand is pushing things behind the curtain. And we're just supposed to be stupid and say, well, that guy is wrong, and they need to do. No, I don't think the American people are, they're that stupid. We've been lied to from the first moment of this thing. The whole thing just stinks. They're
completely.
He fired supposedly 100 rounds inside of the hotel before he started shooting out, and the police were the floor below him, and they cleared the entire floor before entering his room. That is not active shooter procedure. Active shooter is get to the active shooter as quick as humanly possible and disrupt his activity. That's active shooter procedure. Active shooter procedure isn't, well, make sure the entire hotel is secured, and then, and only then, 58 minutes later, try and enter the room. What?
So much ridiculousness going on with this. I completely agree. We've talked about it.
It's
so
insulting.
Times. Yeah, it is.
Literally insulting. They're like, you Americans are just retarded. So here you go. Here's some distraction for you.
Yep.
Well, and they're making a big deal. The news stories. The new thing is they're making a big deal about 720 rounds of ammunition that this guy sold.
I've got that in my office.
I'm like, dude, 720
I have
rounds?
that in my truck right now.
Yeah. You go through that. That's like half a day of training.
Yeah.
It's like a full day of training.
A full day, whatever, Well,
it depends what you're shooting.
Not if you're using a bump stock. That's a half day of training.
If you're using a bump stock, you spend half your time clearing the trigger follows and the malfunctions.
Right.
I want to find the guy that can run an AR bump stock flawlessly, because I haven't found that guy yet. Yeah, I mean, you ever run one, Sean?
They're awful. I have 3 in a bin because I put them on and then I immediately took them off because I was like, yeah, this is literally one of the dumbest things that I've ever seen.
The hammer follow is constant on ARs. Constant. I don't think I've ever I don't think I've ever gotten one full mag without a stoppage through a bump fire gun.
I haven't. No.
Caveat. That's with ARs. On the other side, the AKs run like raped apes. Okay.
All right.
If they would have said this guy had an AK with one on it, and he fired, flawlessly without stopping, I'd have been like, that's plausible. But the average, this guy who's like supposedly had no training, no experience, was just a guy who liked to buy guns, and he was able to rip off. We were talking to one of the guys that's in our grad program about firing 1,000 rounds. Like literally the time it would take for one human. And I don't care if he had surefire mags. And first of all, the surefire 100-round mags, again, if this guy had surefire 100-rounders that would fire flawlessly, he's one of the few people on the planet that do. That's the biggest bitch that people have had for the longest time, was that the 100s don't run. The 60s do, but the 100s have been plagued with problems. So it's just bull crap, man. And you were just supposed to sit in the middle and suck on it and say, yeah, I guess it's terrible. We should ban all those things.
Well said. In a stunning turn of civil disobedience, the Massachusetts bump stock turn-in has had dismal results. To their knowledge, they say that they've only, since the ban went into effect, only like three bump stocks and one trigger crank have been turned in out of, what is probably likely thousands or tens of thousands that actually exist in the state. I'm glad to see this. I'm glad to see any kind of civil disobedience against stupidity like this. But is anyone shocked by this, really?
I am. I didn't think Massachusetts had it in them.
I can't believe that there's that many actually sold in Massachusetts. I mean, they're 10-round max. Who's going to put a trigger crank on a Massachusetts legal AR that he's only allowed to put 10 rounds in? And that's kind of like, all right, I'm done.
The same person that didn't turn in all their 30 rounders would be my guess.
Well, I tell you what, you better not ever get in a fight with your wife or your girlfriend, because you're going to prison, buddy.
Yep. 100% agree.
That's all it's going to take. All these guys are like, I'm not turning in crap. Yeah. You better make sure that your wife or your girlfriend is constantly happy, because the moment she gets mad, there's going to be an anonymous phone call made, and the Gestapo is going to be kicking in your front door to find your unregistereds.
Definitely. And speaking of the silly devices, those trigger cranks, the GAT cranks, have one of those too. Put it on, immediately took it off, and threw it in the same bin with the bump fire stocks.
You know what's the fashizzle?
What's that?
The Echo triggers.
Oh yeah,
they're fun.
Yeah.
They're the fashizzle, and they work.
They are definitely fun. So yeah, no one really surprised that no one turned them in. And I guess maybe Paul, you're right. Maybe there's just not that many there, because who wants to get rid of those 10 rounds in like a second?
Well, you can't go to a public range and do it. You have to go hide somewhere. So it's Massachusetts.
I'm over here looking at what John Rosenthal said. He said these are devices that are designed to kill a lot of people quickly, just in case you didn't already know that. And I'm not sure that we ought to be compensating people for giving up these devices that never should have been purchased in the first place.
Oh, so he thinks they should just arrest people.
Yeah.
When they show up the police and say, I'm going to surrender this. Ha, you're under arrest. You should have never had that in the first place.
Well, but I think that's the most troubling part of this whole thing, though, is that for the first time that I can remember, being 35 years old, I've never seen a state or federal government ban something with no grandfather clause, with no compensation, nothing. Just turn them in and suck it.
It's almost like like it says in the Constitution that you can't deprive people of private property without due course of law and just compensation. It was almost like something like that was in the Constitution, but I think they threw it away. I think they erased that part.
Well, but here's the thing I always find troubling about these bans is that invariably there's always that one reasonable gun owner that says, well, we'll fight it in the courts. But my point is, but once you turn the stupid thing in, you've already lost the fight. Once you turn it in, it's over. They're going to destroy it, melt it down, smash it to pieces. You've lost the fight. Fighting it out in court for months and years on end with our tax dollar, with our money, and then the state gets to use our own tax dollars to fund their legal defense is a losing battle. I mean, if there are 10,000 people in that state that did not turn these in, civil disobedience, 2 thumbs up, because that's what has to happen at this point. It's time for gun owners to stop being reasonable and ignore the FUDs and ignore all these people that preach compromise and say no. The argument is over. Second Amendment, that's compromise. I can own guns. You cannot own guns. I am.
You're radical.
Yeah, look, I think jump on my podcast for 5 seconds. You'll figure that really quickly. When it comes to gun rights, I am a bit of a radical. I think it ought to be Second Amendment, and that's it. Respect it, get over it, or repeal it.
I think we need more bayonets and less bump stocks.
I'm good with that.
More bayonets, less bump stocks.
I totally agree. From the I'm Offended files, guys, and I think this is the answer to all of our questions. I didn't realize it, but a Democratic senator from California says the Russians promoted the Second Amendment so Americans would kill each other. I didn't even know. Like I read that they had basically fixed the whole election, but now the Second Amendment is basically Russian collusion to help us kill each other.
Man,
California should be crying in the corner that they elected this mouth-breathing, crayon-eating, knuckle-dragging idiot.
Yeah,
they should all be ashamed of themselves.
He's got a job for life in California.
Without a doubt. They probably love this guy.
Oh, yeah. These are the people that have been giving us Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein for the last 30 years. They don't care.
And Leland Yee, who got
Leland Yee, who got
400,000 votes while he was in prison.
200,000 votes while under indictment for arms trafficking.
Yeah, something like that.
Isn't it about time for California to fall into the ocean or secede? I mean, I'm just waiting for one or the other. I'm not really particular at this point. Either one would be okay with me.
We're behind the New Republic, California New Republic. But I tell you what, if it grows legs and it looks like it's going to happen, or it gets like traction, you haven't seen tyranny.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, that's going to do it for the stories because I want to give you guys a chance to talk about all the great things you guys are up to. Before we do, again, check out Patriot Patch Company, join the Patch of the Month Club, patriotpatch.co, and go to manicorearms.com. Check out their transformer rail for ARs, AKs. The Tavor, X95, Scorpion all have the transformer technology. One of my favorite things, and I've got them on a bunch of rifles, and I actually paid for those paid for those handguards with my own money. So go check them out, see what they're doing, and use coupon code TWG10. I'm going to start with Paul. Tell us a little bit about Student of the Gun, where people can find you, and all the great things you guys are up to.
Okay, Student of the Gun is everywhere. You can go to studentofthegun.com. That's an easy way to start. But the radio show is public weekly, Mondays and Wednesdays. We have the grad program, which is our exclusive bonus hours and so forth that are Thursdays and Fridays. Student of the Gun TV is available on Roku, Apple TV, Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV. And it's available right now absolutely free for nothing. If you have a Roku player or an Apple TV player, you can just download the app, put it on your thing, and watch it 24/7. Lots of books by myself, Paul G. Markle, available on Amazon as paperback and Kindle versions. So avail yourself to that. And as far as the radio show is concerned, you can listen to it pretty much everywhere. iHeartRadio, iTunes. If you've got a podcasting or a media player on your phone, you can find Student of the Gun. Is that correct, Jared, since you are my producer?
Yes, that is correct. What I've been telling people is if you want to get the 7 training tips that could save your life for free, go to getsotg.com.
Hey, that's pretty easy.
Yeah, there you go. I love that. And Jared, you're all over the place as well, obviously with Student of the Gun and elsewhere.
Yeah, I do a couple different things. Most of my time is spent with Student of the Gun, but I do a lot of stuff and post it to Instagram. So if you go to instagram.com/PTJared, that's where I am.
All right. Love it. Thank you both very much for being on here. It's been truly my pleasure. Phil Rabelais, tell us about all the stuff that you're up to.
Well, Matter of Fact's podcast is fairly new, especially compared to my co-panelists over at Student of the Gun. We've been doing this about a year and a half. We have an hour-long show comes out every Friday. You can find us on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. We're really active on Facebook. We have a page and a closed group where we encourage all of our listeners to show up, come and talk directly to us, talk to each other, share information, whatever you got on your mind. We also have a YouTube channel, and we are on Instagram. But at this point, we haven't really put out any products. We're really just trying to educate and to encourage people to exercise their rights, be a little bit more self-sufficient. Anything that's gun-related or prepping, we're into it.
All right, man. I love it. Matter of Facts podcast, Student of the Gun. Fantastic panelists tonight. My producer did a fantastic job this week. And just a reminder, that producer is Kenny Ortega. You can find us at firearmsradio.tv, iTunes, all the popular places, iHeartRadio, all that great stuff as well. It's produced by Kenny Ortega, a production of the Firearms Radio Network. And guys, we will talk to you all next week.